For years, people have been told that carbs are the enemy. Cut them out, stay strict, and the fat will melt off. That's the message we've been fed. But the truth is, that's only part of the story, because when you understand how the body actually uses fuel, you realize carbs aren't the villain, they're a tool. And like any tool, it depends on how and when you use them. The real problem isn't carbs themselves, it's how most people time and pair them. Here's what most diets get wrong. They treat your metabolism like an on-off switch. Either you're burning fat or you're not. But your metabolism is more like a dimmer. It adapts to what you feed it when you move and how your hormones respond. When you eat carbs at the wrong time, especially when your insulin levels are already high, fat burning shuts off. But when you use carbs strategically, when your muscles are depleted and insulin sensitivity is at its peak, those same carbs refill your glycogen stores without blocking fat oxidation. This is where Smart Carb Timing comes in. It's a precision-based method that uses your body's natural metabolic rhythms to work with your biology, not against it. By placing carbs in the right window, usually after fasting, training, or during recovery, you amplify insulin sensitivity, accelerate muscle repair, and improve performance, all while keeping your body in a fat-burning state the rest of the day. And when this approach is paired with keto style eating or intermittent fasting, the results compound. You get the fat loss benefits of low carb living, but without the crashes, the fatigue, or the long-term metabolic slowdown that strict restriction can cause. This is the sweet spot where energy, performance, and fat loss finally work together instead of competing. When people start their fat loss journey, the first move they often make is to eliminate carbs completely. It seems logical. Carbs raise insulin, insulin stops fat burning, so cutting carbs must keep the fat off, right? But the human body doesn't work in such a simple on-off equation. In fact, taking carbs down to zero for too long can actually slow your metabolism, raise stress hormones, and throw your thyroid and energy systems out of sync. What feels like a shortcut to rapid fat loss often turns into a trap that stalls progress, wrecks recovery, and leads to burnout. When you completely remove carbs, your body initially responds by burning stored fat for fuel, which sounds great. But after several weeks, cortisol, your main stress hormone, begins to rise. Cortisol isn't inherently bad. It mobilizes energy and keeps you alert. But when it stays elevated chronically, which happens during prolonged carb restriction, it signals the body to hold on to fat, especially around the midsection. The reason your body starts perceiving starvation, it slows thyroid conversion from T4 to T3, reducing your metabolic rate to conserve energy. You burn fewer calories at rest, and the fat that once came off easily now becomes stubborn. That's why people on long-term strict keto or zero carb diets often feel a dip in energy, poor sleep, low motivation, and eventually plateaued fat loss. The body is built for survival, not deprivation. When carbs stay too low for too long, hormonal balance shifts, leptin drops, ghrelin increases, and hunger signals get distorted. Even testosterone and estrogen can take a hit, which makes fat loss even harder. But there's a smarter way: strategic carb intake. Instead of viewing carbs as an enemy, they become a metabolic ally. The key is timing and context. After a tough workout or during refeed windows, your muscles are insulin sensitive and glycogen depleted, meaning they'll soak up carbs for repair and recovery, not store them as fat. This is when carbs become fuel for performance, not an obstacle to fat loss. When you strategically reintroduce carbs in these windows, cortisol drops, thyroid output normalizes, and your metabolism runs hotter. You create a cycle where the body feels fed, strong, and safe, so it keeps burning fat efficiently even at rest. This balance between fasting and refueling restores metabolic flexibility, allowing your system to switch easily between fat and glucose depending on what's available. Many people notice the difference within weeks. Sleep improves because cortisol stabilizes. Training performance increases because muscles have fuel again. And paradoxically, fat loss speeds up. Not because of restriction, but because of balance. When the body's stress signals calm down, fat metabolism becomes more efficient. This is what separates short-term dieting from long-term transformation. Anyone can lose a few pounds by cutting everything out, but to maintain lean muscle, optimize hormones, and sustain fat loss year-round, you need a metabolism that's responsive, not suppressed. Smart Carb Timing helps achieve exactly that. It's not about going back to sugar or processed junk. It's about targeted, purposeful carbs that serve your physiology. Think of them like tools in your nutritional toolbox. Used right, they stabilize hormones, replenish glycogen, and maintain muscle, all while keeping fat burning switched on. So rather than chasing zero carb perfection, aim for metabolic precision, fuel when your body needs it, fast when it doesn't, and stay adaptable. That's the difference between someone who loses weight temporarily and someone who builds a metabolism that keeps working for life. Most people hear the word insulin and immediately think of fat gain. They've been told insulin is the enemy, the hormone that locks fat away and shuts off fat burning. But that's only half the truth. Insulin isn't the problem. Insulin resistance is. When insulin works properly, it's actually one of your best tools for recovery, muscle growth, and long-term metabolic health. The key is understanding when your body is most insulin sensitive and how to use that window to your advantage. Your body's insulin sensitivity changes throughout the day. When you've been fasting or just finished a hard workout, your muscles are like sponges, hungry for glucose, eager to replenish the glycogen they burned. In this state, insulin acts efficiently, directing glucose straight into the muscles where it's needed most. This process refills your energy stores, accelerates recovery, and actually improves fat burning later because your metabolism stays active and your hormones stay balanced. But when you eat carbs at the wrong time, say when you've been sedentary, stressed, or constantly snacking, insulin sensitivity drops. Instead of being directed into muscle tissue, glucose is more likely to get stored as fat. That's the real difference between someone who uses carbs strategically and someone who's trapped in a constant fat storage cycle. Timing, not total amount, determines how your body reacts. After a workout, your glycogen stores are depleted, your insulin sensitivity is elevated, and your muscles are primed to soak up nutrients. If you introduce clean, complex carbs in this window, such as sweet potatoes, white rice, or fruit, insulin rises briefly but effectively. The glucose goes to your muscles, not your belly. What happens next is powerful. Cortisol, your stress hormone, begins to drop. Thyroid hormones stay active, and protein synthesis kicks in, rebuilding tissue and stabilizing energy. This is how Smart Carb Timing transforms metabolism. It teaches your body to partition nutrients correctly. Carbs toward recovery and performance, fats toward sustained fuel, and protein toward repair. The result is improved glycogen storage, enhanced recovery, and a metabolism that runs hotter for hours afterward. Even your resting metabolic rate can rise because the body feels safe and energized rather than restricted and depleted. Insulin sensitivity is like a metabolic switch. When it's high, your body operates efficiently, burning more energy, stabilizing blood sugar, and minimizing fat storage. When it's low, everything slows. The body becomes stingy, holding on to calories because it doesn't trust that energy will come again. That's why carb timing matters so much. It tells your hormones that you're in control, that fuel is being used wisely, and that it's safe to burn fat freely between meals. Think of it as metabolic training. Just like you train your muscles to respond to resistance, you can train your body to respond to carbs in a smarter, more adaptive way. Fasting, movement, and proper refeeding build this sensitivity. Over time, your cells learn to use glucose efficiently. You get the benefits of carbs without the drawbacks of fat gain. What's even more interesting is that this strategy compounds over time. The better your insulin sensitivity becomes, the more leeway you have. You can handle carbs better, recover faster, and stay leaner with less effort. It's a metabolic feedback loop. The more precise your timing, the stronger your system becomes. That's the essence of smart carb timing. It's not about fear, it's about control. When You know when to introduce carbs, you stop fighting your biology and start using it. The post-workout window and planned refeeds are the secret weapons of people who maintain low body fat while performing at their peak. It's not magic, it's physiology working exactly the way it's meant to. Not all carbs are created equal. The difference between a carb that fuels fat loss and one that blocks it comes down to its S or source F timing and as an effect on your metabolism. When most people think of carbs, they picture bread, pasta, and sugar, the processed stuff that spikes insulin and triggers cravings. But the right carbohydrates, whole, nutrient dense, and naturally occurring, can actually enhance energy production, support ketosis, and make your metabolism more flexible, not less. When you eat carbs, the goal isn't just to refuel, it's to feed your mitochondria, the energy factories inside your cells. Clean, low glycemic carbs provide a steady release of glucose that fuels these mitochondria without overwhelming your system with sugar. This means you get stable energy, improved recovery, and less oxidative stress. Your body can then transition smoothly between burning glucose and fat, the hallmark of metabolic flexibility. Root vegetables like sweet potatoes, carrots, beets, and turnips are some of the best carb sources for this reason. They're packed with potassium and magnesium, which support muscle function and insulin sensitivity. Their fiber content slows digestion, preventing sharp glucose spikes. When consumed after a workout or during a refeed, they restore glycogen efficiently without pushing you out of a fat-burning rhythm. These are carbs that fuel performance and recovery, not cravings. Seasonal fruits are another powerful choice, especially berries, apples, kiwis, and citrus. Unlike refined sugars, these carbs come bundled with antioxidants, vitamins, and enzymes that protect your mitochondria and improve insulin signaling. The natural sugars in fruit enter your system more gradually, and when eaten post-training or within your active window, they replenish glycogen and calm cortisol. The key is moderation, and context fruit works when your body is ready to use it, not when you're sitting still and stressed. Low glycemic carbs like quinoa, lentils, and wild rice also fit into this category. When used strategically, they offer long-lasting energy for people who train hard or fast regularly, helping to sustain performance without derailing ketosis for long periods. These foods digest slowly, keep blood sugar stable, and provide prebiotic fibers that feed healthy gut bacteria, a critical but often overlooked component of fat metabolism and hormonal balance. One of the biggest misconceptions about carb intake is that any rise in blood sugar will instantly shut off fat burning. That's simply not true. A brief, controlled insulin spike after training or fasting doesn't stop fat oxidation. It actually primes the body to store energy in muscle tissue rather than fat. This improves recovery, reduces inflammation, and keeps your metabolism running efficiently. The danger comes from constant, unregulated spikes, grazing, snacking, and eating high glycemic junk throughout the day. When you fuel with the right carbs at the right time, your mitochondria thrive. These tiny engines rely on proper nutrients to produce ATP, your body's energy currency. Foods rich in polyphenols like blueberries or purple sweet potatoes improve mitochondrial density and function. Over time, this means you burn more fat even while at rest, because your cells become better at producing and managing energy. This is where smart nutrition meets metabolic science. Carbs aren't the enemy, they're a precision tool. When chosen wisely, they enhance thyroid function, stabilize hormones, and keep your body from entering the metabolic slowdown that comes from over-restriction. You don't need to live in a constant state of deprivation to stay lean. You need to teach your body how to use fuel intelligently. The right carbs used strategically act like a metabolic accelerator. They reduce stress on the adrenal system, optimize training recovery, and give you sustained energy without cravings. They keep your muscles full, your brain sharp, and your hormones balanced. That's what long-term fat loss really looks like. Not fear of food, but mastery of timing and quality. Most people fail at fat loss not because they eat too many carbs, but because they eat them at the wrong times. Your body doesn't respond to food in a vacuum. It reacts to context. Hormones, activity levels, stress, and sleep all dictate how your metabolism processes nutrients. That's why the timing of your carbs determines whether they fuel recovery and fat burning or trigger fat storage and sluggish energy. When you align carb intake with your body's natural metabolic rhythms, insulin works for you, not against you. The best time to introduce carbs is when your body is insulin sensitive right after physical activity. Post-training, your muscles are depleted of glycogen, insulin sensitivity is elevated, and your metabolism is primed to absorb nutrients efficiently. Eating carbs in this window doesn't promote fat gain. It actually accelerates recovery and stabilizes hormones. The glucose goes straight into the muscles to refill glycogen stores, while insulin helps shuttle amino acids into tissue for repair. This process not only rebuilds muscle faster, but also keeps cortisol under control, a crucial factor for long-term fat loss. For people following intermittent fasting or low carb during the day, another powerful option is the evening refeed. This approach uses the body's natural circadian rhythm to your advantage. Cortisol is highest in the morning and gradually declines throughout the day. By saving most of your carb intake for the evening, you support serotonin and melatonin production, which improves sleep quality and recovery. Better sleep means more growth hormone release overnight, greater fat oxidation, and a more stable metabolism the next day. A well-timed evening carb refeed resets the hormonal balance that often gets disrupted by chronic fasting or extreme restriction. Then there's the concept of short carb upcyclists, typically once every 597 days for those who train hard or follow keto style eating. These refeeds prevent metabolic slowdown and restore leptin, the hormone that regulates hunger and energy expenditure. When leptin levels drop too low, fat burning slows and hunger intensifies, creating the illusion that your diet stopped working. A strategic carb up using clean sources like root vegetables or rice signals to the body that energy is abundant. The thyroid ramps up, metabolism increases, and you continue burning fat efficiently once you return to your lower carb days. Timing isn't just about fat burning, it's about hormone regulation. Cortisol, insulin, growth hormone, leptin, and thyroid hormones all respond to nutrient timing. By placing carbs after workouts, during refeeds, or in short cycles, you're sensing your eating patterns with your hormonal environment. That's why athletes and lean individuals can consume carbs without gaining fat. They're using biology strategically, not randomly. What's important is that outside of those windows, you give your body time to operate in a low insulin state. That's when fat burning dominates. Long periods without frequent carb intake, such as through fasting or lower carb meals, keep insulin down and fat oxidation high. Then when you do bring carbs back in, the body uses them efficiently instead of storing them. It's a cycle of depletion and replenishment that trains your metabolism to stay flexible and adaptive. This approach also supports long-term sustainability. You don't have to live in constant restriction to stay lean. You alternate between periods of burning and refueling, just like the body was designed to do. The key is precision train first, fuel after, stay low carb during periods of inactivity, and reintroduce carbs when your body earns them. When you respect the timing of your hormones and activity, fat loss becomes predictable instead of frustrating. You recover faster, sleep better, and perform stronger, all while keeping insulin under control. This is what true metabolic control looks like. Not endless restriction, but alignment between what you eat and how your body functions. When carbs are placed strategically, they stop being a threat to fat loss and become a catalyst for it. The biggest mistake people make when chasing fat loss is treating their metabolism like a one-gear machine. They pick a single approach, strict keto, fasting, or low carb, and push it until it stops working. And it always stops working. The human body adapts. It's built for survival, not starvation. That's why what worked in the first few weeks eventually hits a wall. But when you blend fasting, keto principles, and smart carb refeeds into one cohesive system, create a metabolic hybrid, a body that burns fat efficiently, performs strongly, and never hits a plateau. Fasting and keto both work for the same reason. They reduce insulin, increase fat oxidation, and teach your body to rely on stored energy. But when you stay in that mode for too long, the same adaptation that once helped you now starts to slow progress. Cortisol rises, thyroid function dips, and metabolic flexibility, your ability to switch between fat and glucose, begins to fade. You start feeling tired, workouts suffer, and fat loss stalls. That's the signal your metabolism needs a strategic disruption. Enter Smart Carb Refeeds. By introducing targeted carbohydrate intake at the right time, after intense training or during planned refeed days, you reset key hormonal systems without losing your fat burning edge. Leptin, thyroid hormones, and even reproductive hormones like testosterone and estrogen all respond to energy availability. A short period of increased carb intake tells your body it's not starving. That message lowers stress hormones, reignites metabolic rate, and keeps fat loss moving forward. This is how the hybrid method works. Low carb or fasting phases deplete glycogen and elevate fat oxidation, while refeed phases restore glycogen, lower cortisol, and boost hormone balance. You're alternating between metabolic stress and recovery, just like muscle training. That cycle keeps the system sharp, flexible, and efficient. Your body learns to burn both fat and glucose as needed instead of getting locked into one pathway. Over time, this flexibility becomes your biggest metabolic advantage. People who adopt this hybrid approach notice that their energy stabilizes instead of crashing. Fasting no longer feels like deprivation because the carb refeeds keep hormones balanced. Keto no longer causes fatigue or brain fog because glycogen is periodically restored. Even performance in the gym improves. Muscles feel fuller, recovery is faster, and endurance increases. You're no longer just losing weight, you're teaching your metabolism how to adapt like an athlete's. The real power of this method is that it prevents adaptation plateaus. Constant restriction tells your body to conserve energy. Strategic variation tells it to keep burning. Every time you shift between fasting, low carb eating, and smart carb refeeds, you create a small metabolic shock, enough to keep your system guessing and responsive. The result is faster fat loss, more stable energy, and a stronger hormonal foundation. This approach also builds resilience. When you give your body controlled exposure to both scarcity and abundance, it learns to handle both gracefully. Insulin sensitivity stays high, cortisol stays balanced, and the thyroid stays active. You can eat more food without gaining fat and fast longer without crashing. That's what true metabolic health looks like. The hybrid method isn't about extremes, it's about rhythm. You might fast for 16 hours, train in that fasted state, eat protein and fat during the day, then reintroduce carbs at night or after your workout. You could run a 5-day low carb block followed by a single refeed day every week. The structure can vary, but the principle remains: deplete, refeed, recover, repeat. Over time, your body becomes a high performance hybrid engine. It knows how to run on fat when you're fasting, how to use carbs efficiently when you refeed, and how to maintain hormonal balance through it all. You burn fat faster, feel stronger, and stay lean without constant struggle. That's what happens when fasting, keto, and smart carbs stop competing and start working together. Most diets fail because they demand endless restriction. The more someone cuts, the more the body pushes back, energy drops, cravings rise, mood declines, and metabolism begins to slow. It's not a lack of willpower, it's biology. Your body was never designed to operate in constant scarcity. That's why Smart Carb Timing isn't about more discipline or tighter control. It's about metabolic mastery. By strategically reintroducing carbs at the right time, you restore balance to the very systems that keep you lean, energetic, and mentally sharp for the long run. When carbs are used properly, they become a signal not to store fat, but to stabilize hormones. Cortisol, your main stress hormone, naturally fluctuates through the day. It rises in the morning to wake you up and should taper off in the evening so your body can rest and recover. But chronic carb restriction keeps cortisol elevated, tricking your body into survival mode. You might feel alert at first, but over time, that constant stress drains energy and disrupts sleep. Introducing carbs in the evening or after hard training lowers cortisol naturally. It tells your body you're safe, you're fed, it's okay to recover. sleep deepens, muscle repair accelerates, and fat loss becomes sustainable instead of stressful. Carbs also play a key role in neurotransmitter balance. When you go too low for too long, serotonin, your feel-good hormone, starts to drop. That's why people on extreme low carb plans often feel irritable, anxious, or wired but tired. A smart refeed, particularly in the evening, increases tryptophan uptake in the brain, which boosts serotonin and melatonin production. This means calmer mood, better sleep, and more stable energy the next day. You're not just feeding your muscles, you're feeding your nervous system. Energy stability is another major benefit. When your metabolism becomes flexible through smart carb timing, your body switches easily between burning fat and glucose. That flexibility prevents the fatigue and brain fog that come from running too long on one fuel source. Strategic carb intake restores glycogen for performance while keeping insulin sensitivity high. The result is a steady, predictable energy curve, no midday crashes, no sugar highs, no slumps after meals. You feel fueled, not dependent. Long-term sustainability depends on this kind of balance. The problem with rigid diets is that they force you into a state of fragility. One deviation, a meal out, a stressful week, or a skip fast, and everything feels like it falls apart. But when you understand timing and context, you gain control instead of fear. You can fast when life is structured, refeed when it's demanding, and adjust without losing progress. That's metabolic freedom, the ability to maintain your physique and energy without being chained to perfection. Smart carb timing also preserves muscle while you stay lean. When you're chronically low on carbs, cortisol and glucagon rise to maintain blood sugar, which can lead to muscle breakdown over time. By cycling in carbs after training or during refeed phases, you protect lean mass, stimulate muscle protein synthesis, and maintain strength. This keeps your metabolism high, your physique athletic, and your body resilient. The goal isn't to return to a high carb lifestyle. It's to create a rhythm between low insulin phases for fat burning and targeted insulin spikes for recovery. You're essentially teaching your metabolism to self-regulate. It's the difference between running your body like a machine on autopilot and operating it like a high performance engine that adapts to every demand. What most people discover after adopting smart carb timing is a sense of stability in energy, in mood, in results. They stop rebounding, stop crashing, and stop feeling trapped by their nutrition. Fat loss no longer feels like a battle against hunger or exhaustion. It becomes automatic. That's the real power of this approach, not just looking lean, but feeling strong, clear, and balanced year round. Smart carb timing is not about restriction. It's about precision. When you master it, you stop dieting forever and start living in control of your metabolism.